Hi, this is Gina Gold. I'm the MTSS coordinator in Cleveland County, and this video is intended to share how we do social emotional risk screening using the SRSS or the Student Risk Screening Scale. The first few slides here you'll see are the training that we do with our teachers. It takes about 30 minutes, and we explain to them first the objectives are for them to understand the rationale for including universal screening for social emotional risk in our multi-tiered behavior initiative and the procedures for completing the SRSS in their school. We define universal screening so that we're all on the same page with understanding that it's the systematic assessment of all children within a given class, grade, school building, district, academic, and/or social emotional indicators that the school personnel and community have agreed are important. We explain that the purpose of universal screening for behavior is an integral part of our multi-tiered system of support, that it sets the stage for prevention, and that it's an evidence-based instrument to identify risk factors for emotional and behavior difficulties and for social emotional strengths and needs. We explain how prevalent emotional disorders are among school-age children and youth. So we cite different studies with a percent sample of any impairment and serious impairment to show the percent of students that are affected by these social emotional risk factors. A window of opportunity ranging between 2 to 4 years when prevention is critical. According to the U.S. Department of Education, there's compelling research that supports that emotional and behavior difficulties of children at risk should also be identified through universal screening, and more significant disabilities are prevented through classroom-based approaches involving positive discipline and classroom management. So our rationale is that universal screening for behavior is more effective than reliance on ODRs for identifying students with risk factors. For internalizing, which is depression, overly shy, withdrawn, anxiety behaviors, etc. ODRs are typically measures of non-compliant or acting out behaviors, and teachers tend to under-refer internalizers. So that's one strong rationale for assessing our students with this screener. So then we explain examples of externalizing behaviors, including physical aggression, verbal aggression, extremely negative toward teachers and classmates, lying and cheating, and that all of those are indicators of social emotional risk. And then internalizing behaviors that are indicators of social emotional risk can include students being withdrawn, and then that means not talking with other children or have very few or no friends, extreme shyness, timid and or unassertive, avoiding or withdrawing from social situations, or not standing up for oneself. So then we explain that the SRSS is a universal screening for behavior. It takes about 20 minutes per classroom to complete the process, and that it's fair that all students receive consideration for additional supports because this screening is universal. There are 7 items to identify students who are at risk for antisocial behavior. Those include characteristics of stealing, lying, cheating, or sneaking, behavior problem, peer rejection, low academic achievement, negative attitude, and aggressive behavior. And we're very clear in that identifying these characteristics indicate risk for antisocial behavior and help us identify students that we should target for support. We also go over what is on the SRSS, including internalizing items, which include emotionally flat, shy or withdrawn, sad and depressed, anxious or lonely, and that those are indicators of social emotional risk. So for each of those indicators, students are rated on a 4-point Likert type scale for each item, ranging from 1 is never to 4 is frequently. So once we rate each student according to those factors and that scale, then that produces low risk, moderate risk, or high risk scores according to elementary and secondary levels. Screening using the SRSS gives every student equitable potential access to interventions. It's used to inform instruction and to determine access to interventions. And we make sure that we explain that the SRSS data is not used for special education eligibility, to exclude students from opportunities. It's not a personality test, and it's also not a mental health assessment. We do use additional data to help make decisions for the needs of Tier 2 and Tier 3 behavior intervention. That additional data includes discipline referrals, suspensions, the data from the student risk screening scale, parent request, attendance, and we also have a behavior to decision tree to help us make those decisions between the intensity level of support for our students. The directions for administrations are that all teachers meet in some room where they have computer access, that each teacher opens the SRSS screening tool in Google Drive. We'll show you what that looks like here in just a minute. We check that all items are included, the scales included, and the right students are listed. You'll see how we rate each student, and if a student has been enrolled for fewer than 30 days, they don't rate that student because you have to know the student and be able to evaluate the characteristics that we're looking for. If the student's been in school less than 30 days, there's not the likelihood that that data would be accurate. Each teacher completes the SRSS for their assigned class. Teachers shouldn't discuss their students with each other during the screening, and then each teacher will rate the student on the SRSS from 1 to 4 based on their knowledge of the or observation of the student. Then the PBIS or leadership team will analyze data to assign the identified students to interventions based on the entry criteria. They should have a process in place to identify and support students who are at risk or are not reaching behavior, social, emotional standards. The research-based Tier 2, 3 interventions should match the needs of the school and have social validity, should be implemented quickly, are function-based to match the students' needs. Data collected should continue to be collected to monitor outcomes of those interventions. Formal systems should exist for gaining permission and informing parents and family of progress, and entry and exit intervention decision rules need to be established. Some examples of entry criteria would include not only the SRSS data that you can see analyzed there, but also looking at how many discipline referrals there are in a quarter, how many absences within a semester, how many minutes of time out in class per week, in addition to the SRSS data that we collect. So this is a view of the first page of our Google Doc for the SRSS. We use this just to review the different characteristics, especially explaining those for internalizing, and then the scale from never to frequent or a lot of the time that they'll be rating each of these characteristics for their students. So then you have two views of two different sheets here on this slide. The first view would show where the teacher would have their roster, and then they have where they can indicate that scale of 1 to 4 for each of the externalizing factors and the internalizing factors. And that spreadsheet accumulates a total here that produces a score for externalizing factors and a score for internalizing factors. Those scores then populate to another tab that ranks the students according to our students that have the highest externalizing scores and the highest internalizing scores, so that we can look at students that show that highest level of risk according to the teacher evaluation here. Then this is an example of a problem-solving sheet that we use for multiple data sources to help determine student needs. The way this is set up is we list names of students who indicate Internalizing risk, externalizing risk. We look at our PowerSchool dashboard to see if they have the highest level on the risk index. And we look to see if a student currently has a BIP. If the student doesn't currently have a BIP and is flagging for internalizing, externalizing, and our PowerSchool dashboard risk, those should probably be our students of highest priority, and they're listed here. And then we list students according to three of those factors, two of those factors, and one of those factors out of the names that we listed above. And so, out of those students that we list as that flag as highest priority, then we have a place here to identify groups of students to serve them or to address their needs with tier 2 or tier 3 interventions, also using other data as mentioned before in this presentation. So that summarizes how we use the SRSS for our social emotional risk screening. Hope that you found this video to be helpful. Thank you very much.